Well, somehow we made it to episode 2. We're back and we're at the Rutland Arms. Welcome to the Sheffield Hopcast. Hi there, I'm James Marriott. This is the Sheffield Hopcast, beer talk from the Steel City. It's episode 2 and we're going to be finding out more about our hosts here at the Rutland a bit later on. We're also going to be just up the road meeting Alex from Sentinel Brewery. Plus we'll find out about a new beer festival in Sheffield coming soon. First, let's meet the crew tonight. Adam Nicholson, co-host of the podcast. Adam, what's been your beer of the month?
I've got a couple quick ones. Liquid Sex Robot by Lervig.
Filthy, I
know. Which is downstairs. That's another one. One of the Northern Monk Trilogy 2017 ones, hops, that was really good. And one that I was really looking to try, which I think James had tried as well, which is the Thornbridge Love Among the Ruins, which was on keg. I think it was one of the first times they've done that, which is absolutely beautiful.
I'll just knock that one off my list then to mention in a minute.
Well.
Okay, Sean, our beer connoisseur, what's been your favourite beer of the month? Firstly, let's just pay reference to the fact that you're here in one piece after your skiing expedition.
Thank you. Yeah,
congrats.
I had a lovely week in French Alps last week, so I'm refreshed. I've only been in the shop once in the last 10 days.
Wow.
So I'm back in tomorrow and all systems are go. Favourite beer? We did our last Beer Central bottle share at Ecclesall Ale Club back in January. I had it there, and then I also had it in the Smithfield Tavern in Manchester just over a week ago. And a beer from Burning Sky, Plateau, 3.8%, something like that, pale ale, beautiful. And whereas last time on the podcast I kept going on about drinking halves mostly now, I've had a couple of pints of that and just a fantastic beer. Burning Sky, brilliant.
Fair enough. We described you as our brewery last time. We'll stick with that. Laura Rangeley, and Laura, your favourite beer of the month?
I'm going to go for, we were in Birmingham last weekend for the day. I tried 2 beers from a brewery I've never heard of before called Dig Brew Co. They were both double dry hopped pales. They were called Strolling Thunder. And have you seen Tom's Snapchat? I think it was.
I'm sure that wasn't lost in the
What's a good name?
And never heard of the brewery before, and it was kind of beers that drinking them like, wow, they're both great. Yeah. Where are they from? Assuming they'd be somewhere in America from just the sheer hoppiness they'd packed in, both of them. Had a look and they were 2 miles away from where we were sat down in Digbeth in Birmingham. So we had a little wander to have a look around their brewery as well, which was really good fun. So yeah, I'm going to go for those 2.
Okay. Our social media man and relative beer newbie, I think.
Beer virgin, I like.
Beer virgin, we'll go with that. Yeah. Rich Davies.
Sat next to
What's been your favourite beer of the month?
Well, because I'm that beer virgin, whatever Belgian Blues around, I cane it. I really do. And I caned it a bit too much probably on Saturday, just gone.
It's still on.
But they just ran out of it on Saturday night, so I've kind of probably milked that. But then on Friday night, the night before actually, I tried Northern Powerhouse, which I quite enjoyed. That was a good point. I think
which is Magic Rock and
Roosters are celebrating their 25th birthday.
4.8 was it, or something like that?
4.5, 4.8, somewhere around
something
there.
like that. Yeah, so that was good, and had a few of those. But yeah, the Belgian Blue really kicked in on Saturday night.
We've still got some mini kegs left, Rich.
No, I'm all right then for a while longer.
Don't encourage him.
For me, to be fair, I've actually had some really, really good beers right through the month, and for me, it's been a good month for Thornbridge. The 2 barrel-aged sours that they had on, obviously, Adam, you mentioned one of them. The other was the raspberry blonde, which was also really, really nice. But it's their other raspberry sour that I'm going to pick out, Tulamine, which is the first in their kind of year of beer. It's a raspberry wheat sour, and it's just absolutely superb. I'm a big fan of sours anyway, so it's right up my street. And it's just like raspberry just works really well in a sour because it's quite kind of tart to begin with.
Yeah, I can second that as well. Yeah,
and yeah, just thought it was absolutely brilliantly done. And I'm kind of gutted that I know that there's probably a couple of barrels of it still knocking around somewhere, and then it's gone. Quite sad.
Well, sometimes these things come back around. They were doing the tart this year, which they did do last year at some point. So.
Yeah. We've got a sour for our first beer of the night, haven't we, Sean?
We have, yeah. Siren Craft Brew, we're based down in Berkshire. Very appropriate that we're upstairs in the room above the Rutland as we record currently, because the guys from Siren came up to Sheffield, did a meet the brewer in one of the early Chef Beer Weeks, and had a bit of a spectacular night in this very room, chit-chatting with everyone, and at that time they weren't sort of too far away from having launched a Caribbean chocolate cake, which is perhaps their most famous beer, and I know Rich mentioned it.
Yeah, that's one of my particular favourites. Yeah, absolutely.
An absolutely staggering brew, and let's hope they bring that again
fingers crossed.
Back soon. Calypso is what we've gone for. It's a dry hop sour, and it has become a modern classic really. It's part of their core range, and sometimes core ranges can, just from a sales point of view for us, can drag their heels a little bit sometimes. This one doesn't, recognised by a great many Sheffield drinkers as being an absolute classic, and so hopefully we'll be thinking the same in a few minutes' time.
Now, I thought with this that we kind of touched on this a little bit last time, but it's a good opportunity for us to get to know a little bit more about the kind of beers that we like and don't like. Because, as I've already said a couple of times tonight, I'm a big fan of sours. I know they're not to everyone's liking, and I know we talked a little bit last time about the kind of things that we like and that we don't like, but it's maybe an opportunity to discuss a little bit more about the kind of things that do it for us, because I am sours is something that I do really, really like. What I struggle to get excited about is kind of bitters and old English style beers, which don't really do it for me at all.
Like Mester's beers, mucky dark beers.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
I get that.
I know we kind of touched on a conversation before we started recording tonight, where Adam, you were
I was talking about
picking out your least favoured style.
It wasn't the least favourite style. I think it's more. I've talked about it on online a few times, and it's the New England style IPA. I think there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's kind of getting a little bit tiring. I think we were talking about, me and Sean were talking. We're quite fan of hopefully this year being the resurgence of the West Coast IPA. And I don't know what it is about the New England one, whether it's just it doesn't really have that kind of kick to it or that kind of clarity to it.
Yeah, it's very easy drinking. I mean, a lot of West Coast IPAs do give you strong bitterness, and so that doesn't sometimes agree with certain people. Both you and I crave that.
I think sometimes. I mean, we talk. I don't mean to slag any of these brewers off, because I think they make fantastic beers. If you take them in a competition with a lot of other brewers, they win hands down. It's just that there's a lot of styles now where I'm finding it very difficult to pull out the hops almost in between differentiate between these ones. So maybe it's like Cloudwater or Verdant or Day or something like that. All brilliant beers, but I just kind of crave a slight more crispness and a slight more like bite to the hop. And I just find them slightly more quite muddy sometimes. And I think Laura, you were saying like people call them like juice bombs, and I don't really find that sometimes.
I find them really overpowering and a bit cloying as opposed to refreshing, personally.
What do you like then?
I find it hard to pick out a particular style really, because I do like a little bit of everything, but so I'm going to kind of cheat a bit and say I like beers if they're themed around desserts.
Okay.
So, a lovely like chocolatey stout I really enjoy, or like a lot of sours now that have a little bit of sweetness to them, sort of lactose IPAs and all that sort of thing. So not necessarily sweet beers per se, but just beers with a bit.
Did you try the Tiny Rebel one? The
Framboesa.
Is that the one? I don't know if you tried that one. That's quite
raspberry sour.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
That divided quite a lot of opinion, I didn't know. I really liked it. I know you really liked it, and I've seen a few people that said that they thought it was horrendous. It was a real opinion split of that.
See, I've got a really sweet tooth, so anything that's kind of that's got chocolate in the title or anything cherry, or this would be mean that the beer virgin here now, I really kind of instantly get drawn to. And like I said, the Caribbean chocolate cake was one of those instantly that I don't like stout as a rule, but I tried that and I was absolutely hooked on that. And
there's been a real surge, certainly in the last 6 months, of sweet stout, sweet porters. You mentioned Tiny Rebel then. Stay Puffed from about a year ago, their marshmallow porter did incredibly well and was very popular. And then they followed that up in the autumn with Imperial Puffed, so an imperial version, and again incredibly sweet. They did. What was the name of the sweet shops stout that they did as well? Around the same period, I'll remember it in a second. But there are loads to choose from, Rich. You are a lucky boy.
I need to come down to you and
anywhere
pick
you
a
go.
few.
Yeah, there are loads.
Well, I
of
like
them.
baking as well, so it kind of fits in quite well with that as well, because I'm
Drink it while you're
a big
baking.
fan of beer and food pairing and chucking beer in whatever food I can.
What was the Aberdeen one? I did try that and did enjoy it. Don't Go Bacon?
There's Don't Go Bacon. My hat was a bacon and ice cream
So that was that was kind of I didn't think that was more on the sort of sweet side than the savoury side, which I think that was a good drink.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were behind the creation of that.
Oh, yeah.
All these sweets,
Definitely.
coffee and donuts.
So on the flip side, Rich, how are you finding the Calypso?
I kind of, James has talked a lot about sours, and I've kind of like I've kind of been wanting to get into them a little bit more, and I really like that. It's actually I like strong flavours, and it's got a real kind of strong.
There's a few sours out there which I think are a bit of a gateway to sours, and I think that Calypso is one of them. And I remember having it feels like a few years ago. I'm not going to pretend I know when it came out, but I remember trying it and thinking that it's like on the easy going side of like a sour. It's going back to like my favourite beer styles. I'm like James, I do really like sours, but I'm very much like a kind of crisp sour. I'm more
crisp,
rather than the
clean,
kind of funky side of
classic.
sours.
Yeah.
I mean, I know like sort of Wild Beer do quite like funky ones, but I really like their can't tell me the one of the bread one, sourdough, and I think that's kind of like on their less funky side of sours, and like you could drink that all day. It's like 3.5%, and like Berliner Weiss by its style is supposed to be 3.5%. Traditionally, probably served with a syrup, and it seems like the English people seem to just like it.
Seems to me it's got a dry kind of cider
I think I would say to people who maybe are cider drinkers that you probably like a lot of the kind of clean sort of style.
White wine as well, I think.
It's that kind of crisp.
It's not a face sucker, is it, in terms of a sour? And,
No.
You know, I mean, I sometimes really crave those ones that you almost have to fight to drink it, because it really does it kind of wants to suck your cheeks in and everything. Whereas this is almost like a sweet and sour.
It's just,
if that makes sense.
It's just not puckering,
quite
is it?
gentle.
It's very gentle. I mean,
That's quite grassy on the finish as well. That
Yeah.
I think makes it keep really refreshing all the way through the bottle.
I mean, what sort of things do you find like from your shop? What sells well? What do you kind of advise to people who maybe you might risk a sour for?
Yeah, you're right about the cider link to things, and often it is a useful way of just giving people an idea as to what to expect. Because the scrumpy ciders have always had that sort of tart sourness that just make your cheeks wobble a little bit, and so it's a nice intro. And sour-wise, it really does vary. Whereas you've just mentioned IPAs a few moments ago, and there's a lot of the juice and New England style. Sour drinkers, from experience, tend to be perhaps more varied in what they go for. Some will go for lambic, some will go for lots of fruit-dominated sours. People go for classics like that. Lost Industry in Sheffield are very clever with their cocktail sours, so there's lots of variety in there. Sour IPAs, of course, as well. Occasionally sour stouts.
I don't think it's a million miles away from like Salty Kiss.
Yeah.
No, that's not technically. It's like a goes sour, but Magic Rock Salty Kiss, that's really widely available.
Yeah, another core beer from them.
Similar sort of strength as well.
Great. Yeah.
I would say that's kind of a good entry beer if I'm maybe talking to people, or maybe I'm out and someone saying, "Oh, you like this? Try this." And I think that's a good.
Yeah.
Another one that I would probably push on someone is something I think that I'd be quite confident that they wouldn't kind of turn the nose up or just pull a face out.
Mott's a beat. I tend to go with people who've not had a sour before, and a lambic from Brussels, and I think the balance of that is just beautiful as an entry sour on the Belgian side of things particularly.
Do you get people coming in kind of saying, I want to try something different, I want to get into this, but I don't know where to start?
Yeah, people come in quite honestly. I remember one lad perhaps a year ago, I'm a lager drinker, I drink Carlin, I drink Foster's, and I need to move on. I'm desperate to move on. And so the initial challenge then is not to throw Caribbean chocolate cake at them, of course, and say you'll love this. Is to just extend them a little bit. So lagers like Augustina Hell from Munich, or Sam Smith's Pure Brew from Tadcaster gets a lot of love and a lot of following. Just tends to get a mass brand lager drinker, just lifting the taste buds a little bit, and then you can start drifting across into sort of hybrids. There's a lot of lager stroke pale ale sort of hybrids that are brewed, and you're starting to get a little bit more hoppiness from those, and so it's relatively easy to do. And this guy I remember because it was a real a plea from him to get him to move away from the mass market. I felt really sorry for him.
From one style of sour to a very different one, because next we're going to have a drink of the beer that's been provided by our venue tonight. This is Magic Factory Council Brewing Company. It's lickable staves. It's an American sour red ale aged in red wine barrels with some cherry thrown in for good measure as well. It's 7.8%, and it's been provided by our venue tonight, which is the Rutland Arms. Now, last time, of course, we were at Bar Stewards, which is kind of a newcomer onto the Sheffield beer scene. This month our venue is a real veteran, so Adam found out some more.
I'm Kate Major. I'm the co-owner of the Rutland Arms.
So, Kate, could you tell a little bit about yourself and how you come about running the Rutland?
I used to manage the 3 tons on Silver Street Head for Andy of Retail Pubs until about 18 months ago, when Chris from Shakespeare's and I decided to leave and make our own way in the world and try and set up the boardwalk, which obviously all fell through no fault of our own. And so we were kind of bumming around Sheffield trying to decide what to do with our lives when I was told that this place was coming up and that my old boss was wanting to kind of throw in the towel, so to speak. So we jumped at the chance.
What do you think made you think this is a good place to take over?
Well, because it's on the edge of town. It's already an established area for drinking, and because you've got the Sheffield Tap and now you've got the Beer Engine. But it's a little bit out on a limb, so people who are in town shopping or whatever aren't necessarily going to come down here. But now with everything that's going on down sort of Sydney Street in that area, it's all kind of growing. It seems like an obvious place to kind of grow a business which is already a perfectly well-running business to try and make it something amazing.
So you touched on that, but we're in the kind of what they can now call the Cultural Industries Quarter. There's lots of businesses, commercial and including places like the Birdhouse kitchen place to come up. You've now got Sentinel. There is rumours of other places which I don't want to go into in a minute, but I've heard of some interesting. Do you think we've possibly got maybe a new Callum Island on our hands in the next few years?
I don't want to say it's a new Callum Island, because I think that the pubs down here have got a completely different offering to the established pubs of Callum Island and also to the new up-and-coming places in Callum Island. But I'd like to think that we can take some of that pub crawl element of Callum Island away and actually create something new on this side of town as well.
So I know Chris, the other half of the partnership, is more involved in the beer sort of thing, but for anyone who's not been here before, what kind of beers can they expect to find here?
Okay, so on cask we always have 2 or 3 Blue Bee beers on, because that's kind of the background we've come from and it's a favour to them, and they're also, as far as Sheffield breweries go, they're a very good brewery. Then other cask wise we'll get stuff from Almasty, from Northern Monk, from Blackjack, Shiny, kind of a lot of like the good UK cask breweries. Keg-wise, it's a bit more exciting for people who want like the more experimental drinks. So a lot of Lervig, Cloudwater. We've got some Little Earth project on at the moment, which is one of my favourites. And they're just more from further afield, so we'll get some usually Scandinavian and like Northern European beers on.
Last month in the podcast, our colleague Sean, which you know, he commented on some of the great food on offer around this area, but he pointed out, especially Chef Rico here, and how much good food he's doing here. Just how important is that, and what kind of things can they expect to eat if they come in here?
Food is a massive part of the business here, and I think it's definitely, in the current climate of pubs, a very good way of keeping people in and keeping people drinking who aren't necessarily looking to spend a lot of money on alcohol. The food here ranges from the chip butty, made with like proper homemade chips, to like crazy, wonderful, like Asian inspired dishes. They had Korean fried pheasant. Was it pheasant or partridge? Korean fried like game on. They have like all sorts of wonderful. There's a lot of East Asian like inspired dishes. There's always like vegan food to like choose as well, vegan curries and burgers, and then obviously the Sunday brown with like good quality local meat and you know, proper Sunday trimmings.
Over the like last year or so, I've seen a lot of tap takeovers. They're not just been specific brewery based, but they've also been able to focus on particular countries. I just wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about kind of how you get involved in that and where your kind of stance is on what you do.
Chris has a fantastic ability to collect beer from around the country. As soon as it comes up, we'll get an email and he's on it. And then as soon as that happens, he starts to get this like idea of a tap takeover for a nationality. So he's got a load of beers coming up from Cambridge for a Dutch tap takeover on the 23rd of February. Some really interesting like stouts and sours and stuff. But it's mostly through Chris's like incredible ability to just find beers and take them in. And then he prints out pictures of people of that nationality and makes people guess them, because that's his idea of fun.
I mean, looking to the next month, we've got Sheffield Beer Week in the next 3 weeks. What kind of things have you got planned for that week?
So on the Tuesday will be our Camera Pub of the Month presentation, which I'm very excited about. So we'll probably have a tap takeover for that, although it's not been confirmed. But the general theme of the week will be Ladies in Beer, which we've organised with Jules from Hop Hideout and a few other like women in the industry. So there'll be a women tap takeover and stuff like that. And I think Emma, one of our chefs, and Heather, the assistant manager, will be going to Abbeydale to brew a beer with them as well.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you to Kate and the team who've been lovely hosts here at the Rutland, and the beer that we've just been having, which is this Lickable Staves, which is a very odd name for a beer, a very different kind of sour to the one that we were having before. So it's got that kind of, you pick up that red wine taste, but the cherry really comes through as well, and it's, for a 7.8% beer, I find it quite drinkable. I enjoyed that.
It's drinkable. It's really puckering. I think I think me and Sean have got the same sort of flavour. It's quite lingering almost a little bit. It's very different to Calypso. It wouldn't be a starter.
Yeah, I find that more difficult to drink.
Yeah, it's complex. It's complex.
Yeah, complex is a good phrase.
I like the challenge.
Yeah, I'm a simple.
Didn't say I wasn't a lad.
Right, Sean, our next beer tonight then. What have we got?
As part of our 4 each month, we have one local beer, one international, and this is the international, Dry and Bitter, brewery based over in Denmark. It's a little session IPA that they've done, As Seen on TV, it's called, 4.2%, I think largely American hopped. We'll have a taste of it. Dry and Bitter are an interesting brewery though. They're behind a wider campaign within the beer industry, which is worth us talking about, certainly.
Okay, so is it them that actually
The
lead?
instigators, yeah, they lead on it, yeah.
So it's a thing called Hops Not Hate.
That's it, yeah.
Which is about breweries kind of signing up to do special edition beers, which I think is it like half the profits or a percentage of the profits that go to good causes, go to charity.
Yeah. So it goes all the way down the line. So generally there have been collaborations. They did one, for example, with Cloudwater. And so the collaborating brewers agreed to give, I think it is 50% of their net profits from the brew. They're one-off brews, but then it goes all the way down the line. So we as a retailer have stocked probably 3-4 now Hops Not Hate different beers, and on each occasion, once we've sold that particular beer, we then make a contribution. And what we've been doing is doing a contribution each time to a local charity and an international charity, and just splitting wherever we make again as a 50% of the profit on the beer. And so it's something that's benefited Sheffield, for example, or DePaul. We're just around the back of the Moor Market. I remember is one, and they are look after the homeless in Sheffield. There's another one in Sheffield whose name I just forget for the moment, but they look and support our females who are new into Sheffield, and particularly from overseas, immigrants into Sheffield, and support and offer advice. And it's a fantastic concept. Promotes inclusivity, both from a point of view of race and gender, sexuality across the beer industry. So it's good.
It does sound really, really fantastic, because the beer industry obviously is something that's grown and changed so much over the last 10 years, but certainly the last 5 years. And people will look at it and say, well, there's plenty of money knocking around in the beer industry now. So how good it is that there's something there that's about kind of giving something back and doing something that's really kind of helping society as a whole, which has got to be
customers don't have to contribute any of their own funds, but they can buy a beer knowing that down the line money has gone to good causes. So we've found certainly the craft side of the industry is incredibly inclusive, and I know there are lots of different blogs each week looking at gender issues and looking at sexuality issues, and Brexit gets involved as well, I suppose, at different points. But craft beer does have a strong sort of political leaning of various types, but it just seems very inclusive, I think, very collaborative and inclusive as an industry.
And getting more so as well.
Increasingly, yeah.
It's strange for me, because I've said to a few people over the course of the last month, the other podcast that I'm involved in is a football podcast. Anything you do regarding having an opinion in football, you'll get 50% of people will just slate you for it. What I found quite interesting about doing something that's involved in beer is the fact that people are generally very respectful of each other's opinions, and it's fine for us 5 people who can sit down, try a beer, and we'll all think something completely different about it, and that's all right. And it's not that any of us are right or any of us are wrong. There is a genuine respect of each other's opinions, which is really refreshing and really nice, a really kind of nice environment to kind of be in.
It's really good. I mean, we've said from the start that we don't want to be kind of this elitist kind of podcast. We want to be inclusive. We want to encourage people who are maybe starting the journey in beer, also people wanting to just further broaden their kind of horizons on it. But yeah, it's interesting, really good.
You're right with this. It's kind of I'm sitting on a bit of a journey now to try different things, and I guess that's where I am kind of with me personally at the minute, is trying different things and coming along and just finding, discovering stuff that I didn't know before. So.
It's not perfect. There are a number of beer forums out there where people will argue all day long and get quite bitter about it.
No pun intended.
Which can all seem a little bit flippant and ridiculous. I think people are better off approaching things. Everyone, you said right or wrong earlier, James. Yeah, everyone is right. If someone likes a beer for a particular reason, then they are right. And if someone else likes something else, they are right. There's no real wrongs about it.
No, you can't tell someone that they're wrong because they like a beer.
But I think,
you're wrong to like that beer.
Like you said, I work with one of my clients is a pub, and they have that very same thing. If you change the beer on one of them, what the guy that's got his shape of his backside on the, one of the sofas, if you take away his beer he's been drinking for how many years, and he gets a bit upset. So there is that kind of, I get that kind of, arguing on forums, the camera kind of angle possibly, I don't know.
So what's everyone's thoughts on this beer?
It's a session IPA. Some people would like to argue about that as a description for a beer. It would have been a pale ale probably 5 years ago, but 4.2%, easy drinking, there's lots of flavour there.
There is like a lot of
It's quite hoppy flavour.
I really rate dry and bitter.
So you got one that's just come out with Magic Rock recently. Is that one that's just done?
Small Voice, I think it's
called. Is that part of that range?
Pop's not shit. Yeah.
Which I didn't research. I actually think I had it here actually. It's a Small Voice.
It is.
Just like get it in the big 500ml cans.
You can. It's launched in the last 2 weeks.
Really, really nice.
Yeah.
Like
similar to that.
Yeah, it's just
not tried that actually.
It's similar to that. It's probably a little bit cleaner, maybe a little bit cleaner. Not quite as hoppy. I'd look out for that. I think it's worth a can at least, if you can find it on keg. Like I said, they had it on here, but not anymore because probably had one barrel. But really good. Classic Magic Rock with a twist, I suppose. Obviously, and try a bit of twist.
I'm a really big fan of kind of 5% and under beers that really pack flavour. Because if it's a Wednesday night and you really fancy a beer but you don't want anything that's too overpowering, you really are catered for now. There's so many things out there that even quite a lot of kind of sub 4% beers that really do carry that flavour. And I think once upon a time you could accuse some breweries of kind of anything that was maybe 4.5 or under was always going to be a little bit watery and a little bit weak and a little bit
insipid.
Yeah, a little bit thin. But I don't think that's the case now at all.
I've also thought that it's a good benchmark of a brewery. Not necessarily their mid-range beers, but what they can do at the real top end in terms of drinkability. So something like Magic Rock's Unhuman Cannonball. Is it 11%? I think, but is incredibly drinkable and simple to drink, but full of flavour. But then you get things like Simpleton or Magic Rock have got their new small beer range, 2.8, 2.9%. Previous to that, Siren did Half Mast, Jacob's Ladder from Buxton. They get incredible flavour out of sub 3% beers, which takes some doing. But I think that shows an amazing skill as a brewer to create full flavour from low ABV and to create simplicity in terms of drinking.
If you look at it's something that's only recently become kind of available to a lot of breweries in a way because of the price point, because historically beers were more often than not priced according to their ABV, and that was it. And the idea of cramming as many hops into a beer that's 3.5% that you would into a beer that's 6%, there's no way you can command the price for that. Whereas now I think drinkers are becoming more aware of what's gone into the beer and thinking about the value of a beer rather than the price.
Yeah, you pay for the flavour, not for the alcohol content, don't you?
Yeah.
And whatever.
Now,
Sheffield Beer Week is fast approaching in March, and this year there's something quite special to kick off the week, which is a brand new beer festival. Now, Jules Gray is the organiser. You may know Jules from the Hop Hideout on Abbeydale Road. I popped along to find out more about the Indie Beer Feast. Jules, obviously this is a brand new event for Sheffield. Just tell us a bit about it, really. What is the Indie Beer Feast?
So Indie Beer Feast is a one-day beer festival at a beautiful building just along the road on Abbeydale called the Abbeydale Picture House, which is sort of an old 1920s cinema that's being restored slowly, but bit by bit and lovingly. And the idea is just to kind of have a host of brewery bars, so people who work at the brewery will be working on the bar serving beer at the bar so people can chat. There'll obviously be volunteers as well helping out. So 2 sessions, got a morning session and a sort of early evening session. 15 different breweries at the moment, mixed from sort of local breweries such as Abbeydale and Lost Industry to kind of all over. Really, we've got an American brewery, Sierra Nevada, and the feast element is we'll have a number of street food vendors. So there's arancini, really nice bao buns from a company called Little Bao Boy. They're delicious, and a couple of other traders that are going to be there this year.
I mean, obviously there's the main Steel City beer festival and kind of 1 or 2 other beer festivals that take place around the area. What kind of sets this apart? Why is this different?
This is different, I guess. I suppose the Kellam Island one's a camera organised event, so it specifically focuses on camera's focus, which is cask ale, and it's got sort of a huge Sheffield focus. I think pretty much all of the Sheffield breweries pour or have casks there at least. Indie Beer Feast is more kind of a independent organised beer event, and it's, as I mentioned before, it's going to have brewery bars, so people who work from the breweries will be hosting their own bars. It's not something I made a huge thing of, but it is going to be mainly sort of keg dispensed beer. To me, it's just all about tasty beer, lots of different styles, and just trying to showcase that, really.
Obviously, you mentioned about the brewery bars. I mean, this is kind of like a really unique opportunity to chat to the people that are actually making the beers that you're drinking, isn't it?
Yes, most definitely. And what you find as well is they want to engage with people drinking their beer as well, because even though it's nerve-wracking when you do brew a beer and then watch somebody drink it in front of you, I'm sure that's also the point of it, because you're creating something and putting out there, and you want to hear what people's genuine opinions are. So yeah, I think it's kind of connect producers with their customers.
Absolutely. Tell us the kind of the nitty gritty then. When is it? Where do people get tickets? Can you buy tickets on the door? All that kind of stuff.
So it's on Saturday, the 10th of March, and there's 2 sessions. So it's sort of like an earlier afternoon and evening session. At the moment, all the tickets are online, so you can get them. We're partnering with Tickets for Good, which is a percentage of the booking fee actually goes towards sort of charitable donations, but all the details are on their website. You can go on our website as well, which is indiebeerfeast.co.uk. We've also got Facebook, and that's got links for tickets on. It's about $6.50 a session. That includes your branded glass.
Obviously, this is kind of linked to Sheffield Beer Week, which has run for quite a few years now. How are the plans for that coming along?
Yeah, so Sheffield Beer Week 2018 will be year 4. And the part of the reason for kind of arranging the Indie Beer Feast, sort of not just sort of personal desire to put on something like an event like that, it was also partly because of the loss, I guess, in a way, or movement, should I say, of the Society of Independent Brewers Conference from Sheffield to Liverpool this year. So SEBA, as they're known as, have been in Sheffield for about the last 5 or 6 years, and they did sort of have a beer festival that was on, and since they've moved to Liverpool, they're actually not having a beer festival over there. It's just going to be a trade conference. But what's happened is there's kind of a gap really now from their Beer X or Beer Alive festival that was during the week. So it just felt like the right moment really to launch something new to sort of fill that gap really. I suppose that kind of last comments really. I'm just kind of excited to put it on personally. It's also nerve-wracking putting on an event. We're kind of looking at starting sort of intimate and small. So the sessions, you might be looking at kind of anywhere between sort of 200 and 400 people a session. So hopefully that'll mean that people have more chance really to talk to people at the brewery bars as well, I guess. But yeah, it'd be great to see people come out and support it, really.
Well, thank you to Jules for her time. One of the breweries who are going to have a bar at the beer feast is Magic Rock, and we've got, I believe this is the newest addition to their core range, but not a new beer as such.
Not a new beer, no. Beer that's probably been out 12 months-ish, something like that.
So, yeah.
And 2 new beers have gone into the core range, actually, just in the last week and a bit. Dancing Bear, which is a German lager, I think. And then, of course, this one, Fantasma, IPA, and the number 1 rated gluten-free beer in the UK currently.
What I find really interesting about this, it's gone into the core range, but it's got the fancy cans. Because normally Magic Rock, their core range cans are the ones that are just kind of one set colour, whereas this has got kind of the crazy ass can design.
Dancing Bear has gone into line with the others. I'm not quite sure whether why this is the case.
It is a very pretty can.
This is where I go all vain. It's always pretty can. I like that.
So anyone wonder what Fantasma means? Apparently it means like monster.
Right. In what language?
It's a different one.
Well, anyway, it's a 6.5% IPA.
It's got a monster in a different language, apparently. Don't quote me on that.
We need to Google that, don't we?
Do it, go for it.
So Magic Rock are one of the breweries then that are going to be at the Indie Beer Feast, and I think we've all been kind of going through the list of other breweries that are going to be there. I've got to say, I got my tickets sorted. Actually, literally today, I finally got around to sorting my tickets for it.
Oh right, it's not Monster, it's Ghost.
And I am
Ghost. Yeah, similar. There's a no in it.
Similar-ish. I am really, really looking forward to it. I'm a big fan of these kind of smaller beer festivals, right down to just last week at the is it called the Stupidly Delicious Beers Night that they have at Shakespeare's, which I'm hoping is going to be like a kind of a biannual thing now. Really enjoyed that. Last year I really enjoyed the vegan beer festival that was at Yellow Arch, which again was very kind of small, with some quite unusual beers, and it sounds like this is going to be a little bit like that, because the breweries quite a lot of them are breweries that are becoming quite known for doing unusual, kind of strange, wacky beers. So for me, Lost Industry and Mad Hatter are probably 2 that I'm really looking forward to. I've always been a fan of Lost Industry, and I do like Mad Hatter because they also tend to do those kind of like crazy ass, slightly silly beers that don't really make any sense until you actually taste it.
Yeah, I was going to say probably, apart from the obvious ones that which we're quite lucky in Sheffield to get quite a lot of these breweries anyway, but Mad Hatter is one of the ones that you don't see much in the bars. It's one that you kind of risk a bit in the shops. And I've had some absolutely fantastic Mad Hatter beers, but I've also been warned off about some of them from people in shops. Not you, Sean, actually, like other shops where I've been like, which one do you recommend? So we're going, I want to have that one. This is really good. Ones I've got really good ones. The Toxith IPA, amazing. The one of the ones, I don't know if you've had that one, Jen, the Tzatziki sour, which is like it's essentially trying to replicate a tzatziki kind of.
It does. It
is. It's
yogurt, mint.
Yeah, it's not particularly. Again, I would class it in the entry sour kind of range.
I think for me, Indie Beer Feast is a real opportunity for Sheffield to step up to the kind of beer festivals that other cities have got. Like, I know it's starting on a relatively small scale this year, but it has potential to be something, like an Indie Man or something like that. And I think the range of breweries that are in there, with like there's Moore and Thornbridge and sort of kind of bigger, more recognisable names, alongside smaller breweries that you only really see at a sort of niche festival. So I'm really looking forward to Torside, who I'm sure I'm probably going to mention every month because I don't work for them, I just love them. And Elusive as well, who are based pretty much next door to Siren. Which is a man called Andy who used to homebrew, was really, really good at it, and blogged about his setting up a brewery experience. And his beers are always fantastic, and he's good friends with Siren as well, and they've sort of worked together on various projects. So I'm really excited to see the things from the small breweries, and also to see how the local breweries that probably won't have as much experience as being at the festivals, pouring with these like nationwide brewers to see how their beers stand up, because I think they're absolutely going to. So I'm really looking forward to it.
I'll mention as well that you'll have heard Jules kind of talking about this, the idea that it's each brewery that's hosting its own bar, so you've literally got the opportunity to talk to the people that make that beer about the beer, and that's quite a unique opportunity to be able to, if you want to find out, well, what makes this taste like this, or how did you come up with this idea, you can actually ask them, and that's for, well, I got my tickets earlier, £7.50 for the evening session. For £7.50 to have that kind of audience with all these breweries from up and down the country, on, for me, almost literally my doorstep, it's 10 minutes from where I live, it's just brilliant, and I just I'm really looking forward to it. It's the kind of event that is just spot on for me, kind of small, low-key, with some really interesting breweries who I'm sure will come up with some interesting beers for it.
And it's the first night of Sheffield Beer Week as well, so it really does move things on in a spectacular way for the start. There are lots of events that week, and it's good to have a real feature event to kick it all off.
So just going back to the beer, we're drinking a gluten-free beer. I don't want to go too much in case we kind of cover that another point, but the last year I've kind of done quite a bit with the gluten-free thing. I've got a friend who does at gluten-free pint on Twitter. He's really trying to push like the places that try and do gluten-free beer in Sheffield and stuff. And Sean, you've been a few times.
At various times, not much more than 18 months ago, if we got 4 or 5 gluten-free beers in the shop, you could celebrate that. Just before Christmas, early December, we got over 20, I think it was 24 different gluten-free beers. So breweries of all types, both more traditional sort of real ale scene, Walltop, for example, over in East Yorkshire, really do set a standard. And I remember going to Walltop once to collect some beer on our way home from the coast, and there was a bus there, coach, and I said to one of the brewery lads, I said, you got some visitors? And he said, yeah, there's some breweries come across from the United States, because we're good at gluten-free beers. They've come to listen to us do a little bit of a talk for them. So I said, who are the breweries? And he said, I don't know any of them at all. He says, I think one's called Sierra Nevada, I think another one's called Brooklyn, and he more or less listed off 6 or 7 unbelievable breweries from the United States. And this lad who lived up on Yorkshire Wolds and worked for Walltop in the brewery didn't really know who they were, and didn't perhaps recognise how important it was that these people were coming to listen to Walltop delivering it. So they've really developed initially a niche in the market, but then lots of others. First Chop in Manchester have got to be given a shout out as well, because all of theirs are gluten free, and again a spectacular range of different styles.
It costs a lot of money for breweries to put it through a test to send a certain amount of beers through to certify it as gluten free. Doesn't mean that they can't brew it as gluten-free, it just means they can't particularly advertise it as gluten-free.
There's premises audits and things like that. It's a really, really lengthy, difficult process for breweries to go through. So I think there probably are a lot of breweries that are producing beers that are reduced gluten or are close to, if not entirely gluten-free, but it's not going to be advertised as that.
Yeah, a point with this one, when it was in the tall 440ml cans, I've got a feeling it said Fantasma IPA on the bottom, and so was incredibly popular as a drink in its own right, and lots of people actually had that beer not knowing it was gluten free, and then there were other people who were gluten free drinkers that were very familiar with it. It's interesting that now says gluten free IPA on the front of the can, so I'll be interested from a retail point of view as to whether that someone sees gluten-free on it that doesn't need to drink a gluten-free drink, sometimes automatically assumes that's got it's got something missing. I don't need that. I can have something else.
You can guarantee that there's no flavour. It doesn't impair the flavour at all.
No, lots of people just did not know. Fantastic looking can, great beer inside, 6.5%, hoppy as hell, and people were satisfied with that as a drink.
It's actually not got the cross grain symbol on it, which is the
Okay.
UK certification.
Yeah.
It's like the recognised symbol, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it does say EU.
Yeah, not many do.
Yeah.
Not many of the ones that we have got that on.
But it's an extra cost and all that kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
Risk it for a
nice beer.
not risk it for a gluten-free biscuit.
Right. Now then, our Meet the Brewer feature for this month is actually just around the corner. It's Sentinel Brewery, and Alex Barlow is he's the master brewer and owner and founder. Now it's a place that's had a real kind of topsy-turvy first year, but thankfully very much pulling through and establishing itself nicely on the scene. So Adam and I went along to meet Alex. For anyone that doesn't know, then tell us kind of the history of, I guess, yourself and the brew house.
Well, I've been pretty much in beer as long as I can remember. So every job I've ever done has been in the beer industry. So I started in my local pub, age 17. Not legally old enough to pull pints, so I was cleaning beer lines and stocking up fridges and that sort of thing. And just really found I got a taste for beer. So I enjoyed that. I went to university, ran bars while I was at university, and then. And I studied pharmacology and sort of like the medical sciences and that sort of thing, which is a good foundation for a number of different things. Originally I wanted to do medicine, but I sort of like weaned myself off thinking that. The idea struck me that sort of like with my love of beer, why not join Bass as a brewer? So applied to them, got offered a job. And much to the anger of my pharmacology professors, turned down Glaxo in favour of Bass. The rest is history.
I mean, obviously you've kind of worked for a few different breweries, and then kind of you find yourself here, kind of heading up this project. How did that come about? What made you decide to kind of follow this direction and open Sentinel?
Well, one way or another, I worked with Bass for 18 years, and the company went through a lot of changes. I worked for a lot of different breweries. Started out in the northwest, then came over to Sheffield, so I worked at both Hope and Anchor and Stones breweries. Then I went from there out to Star Apartment out in Prague. Was there for a couple of years, and that was fantastic. It was a great eye opener for me. And I was a big fan of English cask beer and pale ales and that sort of thing. And there's actually a great similarity between that and Czech Pilsner in a lot of respects. And as a brewer, I really appreciated the similarities and the nuances of difference. So, I'm now a big lover of Czech beer and hence brewing our interpretation in Pivo. But I also used it as an opportunity to travel the continent and particularly breweries and beer styles around Europe. When I came back and I stayed sort of like for a while with it within the company that had then been taken over by AB InBev briefly or InBev as it was then, and then by Molson Coors. And everything started changing, and the focus was very much lager, and that's what they thought the future was. And I thought, well, I honestly don't agree with that. I think there's a real future for ale, as the craft beer movement that's all happened since has shown. I decided to work as a consultant, so I spent 12 years or so working as a consultant. And I helped other people start breweries, both in the UK and abroad, and develop their breweries. So I had a number of clients. But I found that I really wanted to just get in and do it myself. And I thought, well, you've either got to get this out of your system, you've either got to do it, or forget about it. So I decided to do it and get serious about putting the plan together for Sentinel, and really the plan was all about having a brewery whereby everything was on show. People have seen open kitchens where they can see the chefs working, etc. Well, that's the theory here. So it's like an open brewery. There's nothing but that's behind closed doors. There's windows into everything. 70% of the brew house is surrounded by glass. And if you stand in the middle of our bar, you can see grain to glass in your eye line. It's 20 metres. So I wanted to try and pull together all the things that I'd the best of what I'd learned in sort of like 30 odd years of being in the industry.
So thinking about your kind of range of beer, then Alex, what would you pick out as your favourite beer of yours?
That's probably the toughest question you can ever ask me, because it's almost like asking a parent what's your favourite child, you know. and as my partner always says, the one I'm talking to at the time, you know. And it is a bit like that, because, you know, when you've created a range of beers, you want to keep tasting them and making sure that what's being served to our customers is absolutely bang on and the way it should be. The ones I tend to drink more often than the others are probably Pivo and ZF, though.
As we kind of sit here talking now, it is Burns night, and you've got a nice Burns night event going on out in the bar. So, you know, we're still kind of in the early stages of the year. What does 2018 have in store for Sentinel as a venue, and in terms of what you're going to produce beer wise?
We're still a very young brewery. We're not yet 2 years old. We've had, you know, sort of very well documented financial issues, which we're still, you know, working our ways through. It was a very expensive project, and much more expensive than we initially thought it was going to be. You know, but I've got a great bunch of directors. We're absolutely committed to this. You know, we've got an exciting range of beers planned for the course of the year. We've decided on what our core range is going to be and stick with, and then we're going to rotate through pale ales. So, you know, one of the next pale ale we're going to brew it will be a Belgian pale ale, which we'll do on cask. So, but with Belgian yeast, we're using. I'm having some Sheffield University, Hallam University, we work with very closely. They're growing me up some Westmalle yeast at present, which is going to be used for that Belgian pale ale. We'll rotate a guest lager as well. So we're planning to do an IPL, an India Pale Lager, so a more hoppy lager. We'll go back to the Kelsch for the summer. We'll do you know, a bock beer for the winter. So you know, sort of like rotating through lager styles. We've always rotated the IPA. So the base recipe is the same in terms of the malt and the yeast and the liquor grist, but the hops vary. We always try and aim for 60 IBU. We always dry hop to the same rate, but we go through British hops, American hops, EU hops, and Antipodean hops. And at present, in fact, it's currently on circulation. We've got the first dry hopping of our first ever dipper, double IPA. So it'll be a double dry hopped double IPA. It's going to be around about 8%, just shy of 8%. And it's a variation of our anti-IPA, so it's Antipodean hops, Australia and New Zealand. So it's got some cracking great hops in there. It'll be a real tropical fruit bomb. There's a bit of a trend at present for confectionery beers, so we've got a bit of that going on. So we've got a few recipes. We want to do a white chocolate bounty beer. We do the orange stout is our Irish dry stout at 4.2. I want to sort of like push that up to 6.2 and do a double chocolate orange stout. Our rhubarb and rosehip goes was very, very well received, and you know, so like we're well out of that in draft now. Still got a few bottles left, but well out of it in draft, and I want to do a twist on that with rhubarb and ginger. And we're moving more into can rather than bottle. The thing with the mobile canners is that we do that in the brewery. I'm not sending beer away, and I'm a bit anal about being in control and wanting to see everything that's happening and making sure it's happening on the premises. So I feel a bit more control with that canning on site. One or two of the beers probably suit being in bottle better. Probably the Pivo we'll keep in bottle, but everything else will go in can.
Alex, thank you very much for your time, and the very best of luck with everything here in 2018.
You're most welcome. Thanks very much, guys. Cheers.
Right, we've got one more beer to try on the Hopcast this month, and this is one, Sean, you're particularly excited about. This is the Little Critters, which is a local brewery, Sheffield Brewery.
Yeah.
Nutty ambassador, and this is one. This always seems to come quite high up in your bestsellers. It's kind of been a long stay.
We like to recommend it. It was first brewed by Will Inman, who moved from Thornbridge to work for Little Critters about a year ago, and was launched in 330ml bottles as hazelnut milk stout, 6%. lots of chocolate, lots of hazelnuts, lots of sweetness from the lactose in there, and we thought a fantastic beer, and went down incredibly well with customers. Since been rebranded along with all the other Little Critters beers that have all got a little sort of animal influence as Nutty Ambassador, now relaunched in 500ml bottles. But from a point of view of customer satisfaction, this beer always seems to score very highly, and is a local beer, is a Sheffield beer. It's interesting to see a Sheffield brewery, along with Abbeydale and a couple of others like Lost Industry, actually challenging things and doing things a little bit different. So lots of nuts, lots of chocolate in this one.
Now, Rich, you were talking earlier about the fact you're not a big fan of stouts.
I'm not a big fan of stouts, but I'm sold already.
Going to come to you. What do you think?
I get the nuts straight away, and I'm not a big kind of any nuts in chocolate and all that kind of stuff. Just really doesn't work for me. But that's really nice.
It doesn't actually contain nuts, does it?
It's not listed as an
No.
origin.
A lot of them now use natural flavours, so the beer that we've done with North Riding Brewery,
it's the natural hazelnut
is the same, natural flavourings, and so you're not really suffering from any allergy issues.
It's really nice, actually.
No, I can't, like I said, I'm not a big stout lover, but I'm kind of following
I think
on from
even better on cask. We're supping this from the bottle now, and I think serving on cask gives it that added thick mouthfeel that the bottle can sometimes lack. 6% and on cask, thick mouthfeel to
6%,
it.
even at that, though.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous 6% at that. It's like Jaipur kind of danger.
Oh God, that's my poison. Jaipur is my poison. If I'm going to put a Thornbridge pub, don't let me touch Jaipur, and I always end up drinking it.
Anybody that likes Omnipollo No Pecan Mud, which is 11%, this one's a similar sort of feel and style to it. Certainly similar aroma, but is more accessible at 6%.
We were talking last time, weren't we, about you're quite into the really strong, really heavy kind of stouts and porters, and they probably need to be, bordering on double figures to really kind of do it for you.
Yeah.
Whereas this is 6%, which in comparison is quite thin, it's quite weak, but it still does it.
Yeah. In bottle, it feels. I much prefer it on cask or to bottle. I think the mouthfeel in bottle is just a little bit thinner. The flavour's still there, the aromas are still there. But again, it's all about context. We were on about this earlier. I'm not a big fan of best bitters, but I'll sup a best bitter if I'm in a little country pub with a nice roaring fire. If I'm going to drink a big sweet Omnipollo Noah, then that would be the end of a nice night on a fair few beers, and that'd be my nightcap.
I was thinking of something else.
See me off to bed.
I was thinking of something else local, which is dark, not in the same style, but like Acorn Golovka, and that is a lot heavier than. Golovka's a lot heavier than that is.
Fantastic beer, Golovka.
Absolutely brilliant beer.
Just 6.
If you're looking for something dark and 6%, maybe something a little bit sweeter, a little bit more aromatic, and it's in the sweeter end of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't compare it to Golovka, but I'm thinking about the strength and how it's accessible at that kind of level. Really good beer. Really nice.
Right, now for something a little bit different, a little bit new on the Hopcast, and it's kind of like introducing a new member of the team. Now, Russell Norton works at the Ecclesall Ale Club, which we're all big fans of, and each month now he's going to bring us the Russ Report. Now, this is kind of delving into the world of beer. I'm quite pleased to have Russ on the Hopcast. 2 reasons, really. First of all, as we talked about earlier, we're all about being inclusive and representing minority groups in Sheffield. Russ is a Unitedite.
Hey!
And he also brings the average age down considerably.
How rude!
Rich, I'm looking at you.
How rude!
Not saying anything. So in the weeks ahead, Russ is going to be finding out about some new beers. He's going to be checking out what the local breweries are up to, finding out about what the pubs around Sheffield are doing. But to start with, this month he went to the first big beer festival of the year over in Manchester.
Hi, I'm Russell, and I've just spent the weekend at Manchester Beer and Cider Festival. It was held at the Manchester Central Convention Centre, and it's a really great sized venue. However, it just feels a bit businessy. You get in, and they've tried their best to cover it up with sort of posters and what have you. It just lacks that little character. However, the real redeeming feature to this festival is the actual bar, 200 hand pumps, and that is a real sight to behold. Manchester Beer Festival have done a really, really good job of picking out the beers here. There were 750 beers, and they had a really good range from up and down the country. It was quite a lot of pales, bitters and stouts, and there was nothing too adventurous, nothing that really pushed the boundaries of what a beer is. Abbeydale were there, as always, as you would imagine. Bradfield were there also with their core range. Onto sort of personal beers that I quite liked. Tiny Rebel Dutty was a real favourite of mine. It was a real complex pale. I don't know if it's unfamiliar to you, but it was to me. And it was one I've not tried of the Tiny Rebel range, which was always a good choice of a beer. And I mean, it had a lot of different hops. I was getting Mosaic, Simcoe, and a slight bit of Citra there. And it's a real one to watch. Maybe this is one to become their core range. Blackjack had a brewery bar there, and I thought they did really well. Probably my beer of the festival was Aces High. Probably about a 5.5%, might be slightly less, but this was a real nice, tasty pale. It was just so quaffable, you could easily drink 5 or 6 pints of. Again, I probably in a January beer festival, not what you would expect, but if this was held in June, Aces High would be your beer of choice. Arbor had a really good lineup, and the single hop hip Simcoe was the highlight for them, getting that real tropically Citra flavours from that. Blue Monkey were there as well with classics like BG Sips and Gorilla. And Bristol Beer Factory, for me, are really, really good beer producers. And they were making some quality beers at the minute. However, I feel like the bit of a dud of the beer that I tried was the Blackjack 21. It was a cranberry IPA. It had all the IPA body there and everything you would expect from an IPA. However, the cranberry was very overpowering and almost made it like a sour beer and not really the sort of refreshing, juice-like flavour I was expecting from a beer. Overall, I think the venue was really good. It could just do with being somewhere like Sheffield at the Kellerman Museum or Derby at the Roundhouse. It just needed that little bit of niche to bring people in and make them go, wow. However, hats off to the beer selectors. They've done really well there. 750 beers, all quality. And I think overall this beer festival would probably get a 6.5 out of 10.
Should just say a big thank you to the Beer House where we recorded the first Russ Report. He'll be back next month. Now to wrap up tonight, we need to pick our communal favourite beers. So, Rich, you're on Twitter at DickieOwl. What's been your favourite beer of the evening? You know where I'm going, don't you? The man that doesn't like stout enjoyed the stout the most, the Nutty ambassador. You going for the little critters? The little critters one, yeah, okay. Absolutely, yeah, spot on. Adam, you're on Twitter at OnTheBarChef. Yep. What are you going for?
I think it's a new beer to me, and I've had some of them before, even though they're all excellent beers. I think I'm going to go for the Nutty Ambassador as well. Wow. Ooh. So an early lead. Sean, you are at Beer Central Ltd. What is your winner of the evening?
As a bloke that likes Nutty Ambassador, this is now going to seem very odd that I am going to go for the Siren Calypso. Oh, right. Absolute class. Yep.
Laura, you are at Mashton and Meow. What's been your favourite?
I'm going to be the one that speaks up for the craft and goes for the lickable staves. Going for the rare beer. I really liked it. Like I said, I really enjoy a complex beer. Just so much to think about and really sip on and savour.
Some left.
Thanks.
There we go.
Okay, so I'm on Twitter at James Marriott, and actually I'm going to go for the Dry and Bitter. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really nice, and I kind of like what goes with it with the hops not hit thing. Yeah. So that's.
Does that mean the Nutty Ambassadors have won?
But that does mean, if my calculations are correct, with 2 votes, that makes Nutty Ambassador our winning beer for
Put your arms
for the
down.
second Hopcast.
There's no need to celebrate such a way.
Well, thank you for your company on episode 2 of the Sheffield Hopcast. As ever, we welcome your feedback and your ideas. You can follow us on Twitter at Chef Hopcast, or track us down via the website sheffieldhopcast.co.uk, and we'll see you next month.